Hello, everyone. Welcome to Blueprint to Success, Crafting Your Business Plan. My name is Kara Cote. I'm the Client Services Manager at WESC, and I'll be happy to walk you through this webinar today. We've got 30 minutes to go through a lot of information, so we're going to get started here right away. Just a couple of things to note. This webinar is being recorded, so it will be available to you later on if you want to watch it again or share it with your friends that might find it helpful. And if you have any questions, you can also use the chat feature or the Q&A feature. I'll try my best to monitor it during the webinar here. If I don't see it, I'll try my best to get it at the end if we have some time. But with that, let's get started. So I'm going to share my screen. Just bear with me here. All right. So this is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to spend just a minute talking about a couple of things that you might find interesting about WESC. So just a minute on that. We're actually going to talk about the purpose of a business plan and some of the uses for it. So a minute on that as well. We're going to talk about gathering the information that you need for this, some helpful resources for yourself. I'm also going to talk a little bit about preparing a business plan to get a loan and what that looks like. And then for about the second half of the presentation, I'm actually going to open up the business plan template itself, and I'll try my best to get in like maybe one tip for each section. So I'm not going to go through the business plan today and kind of like explain how to do each section, because we've actually updated our business plan recently that has a lot more information in it and asks you some questions to kind of like help you through that. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. And just a heads up that there will be a workshop. I believe it's the end of July, where if you want to actually to work on it together and get some work done on that, that'll be coming up. So watch for that announcement as well. Okay. Come on, keyboard. There we go. Okay, so about WESC. So there's 4 things I just wanted to quickly mention. So we do have business advising and expert access available to WESC members. So the business advising is unlimited, and it's one-on-one help with honestly whatever you need when you're kind of developing your business to get it off the ground, or if maybe you're in expansion mode. We do have a program called Expert Access. So that's if we determine that you're like, wait a minute, this is maybe a question for a lawyer or an accountant, then we can actually dial up our lawyer and accountant friends and actually get them on the line and ask them some questions, and it's at no cost to you. We also have some networking events called WESC Connect. So right now they're hosted in Regina and Saskatoon. There's likely more coming else in other locations. They start up in the fall, and they're free networking events for you to kind of meet other women in the business community, other ecosystem partners. It's a really great time. Again, it's free. All you have to do is register so that we know how much food to order. So, and then the third point is that we do have business loans. And with the business loans, we can offer up to $150,000 at WESC and an additional $50,000 through our national partner called WEOC. So that your business advisor can help you with that if you're interested in funding. And then the last piece is the Women-Owned Business Database, which is on wesc.ca. It is free to register. You don't even need to be a WESC member to get on there. We're just trying to encourage corporations to start buying from women-owned businesses and providing them with a tool to find them. So it's been pretty helpful so far. It's actually a huge database, and it's really successful. So if you're not on there yet and you're operational, I would really encourage you to do so. All right, so the purpose of a business plan. So, okay, the definition of a business plan, it outlines a company's goals, strategies, and resources required to achieve those goals. So a couple of things is with planning, usually getting a business going is a lot more expensive and complicated than we're expecting it to be. So this is a way to kind of help control some of the things you can control. So it helps you be a little bit more proactive and trying to figure out all the things you need to be kind of prepared for. They also say that studies show that entrepreneurs who take the time to write a business plan are 2.5 times more likely to get the business off the ground. So it's a very motivating document as well. So the other pieces in planning is, again, those questions there. Is the idea going to work? What are the steps I need to get running? And also, this is a really important one, is what does success look like? So I would really encourage you to think hard about that question. There's a lot of maybe preconceived notions about what success looks like, but honestly, whatever you're the happiest with, that's successful. So just kind of put that in your plan, as well as maybe there's steps that you want to achieve. And then also how to protect yourself, because you're probably going to be investing a lot of time and money. So let's make sure it's worth it too. Also, when it comes to partners, especially business partners, um, this is a fantastic tool to determine if the person you're thinking of partnering with is a good fit to work with, especially if you're maybe don't have a long relationship with that person. So something to consider, that it is a tool to make sure that everyone's on the same page, and that it's going to work moving forward. And then we get into the funding. So if an institution does give business loans out for startups, because not all do, it's a little bit on the risky side, it is a requirement to submit a business plan if you're not yet operational. Also on the grant side is usually when you're filling out a grant application, maybe you're doing a grant for like a wage subsidy or a training program or something like that. You're usually supposed to provide pretty much the same information that's in your business plan. So it's really handy to have all of that information ready. And then the last point is regarding the future. So it's a working document to achieve your goals. It's kind of like a blueprint. It's really hard to build a building if you don't got a blueprint, especially if it's going to be complicated. So kind of keeps you on track, keeps you focused. And I would also recommend saving versions of your business plan, because it's actually pretty funny when, like, years down the road, when you're doing great with your business and you go back and you look maybe your first or your second version of your business plan, you're like, whew, yeah, that was something. Maybe I didn't quite know a lot way back then. So it's a nice piece to kind of keep just in your archive. All right, so now we're going to talk about gathering some information. I would really recommend using a template to gather everything in. So Wes, we work pretty hard at constantly kind of revamping our template to make sure that it's kind of pulling in everything that you need. There's lots of other templates out there. Honestly, whichever the one that you feel best with, go ahead and do that. It's just going to be easier. It's almost like a checklist, like, oh, do I have everything? Also, I would really recommend using bullet points. Don't stress about formatting. A lot of people try to make it look nice and pretty and sound amazing. But honestly, we just need to understand, especially if you're going for lending, we just need to understand the concept. You're not getting graded on this or anything like that. So it's just as long as the information is there and we can read it and understand it, that's fantastic. I also say start with what you know and feel good about. You can skip around in sections in your business plan, but just put in maybe like the stuff that you're feeling pretty good about, maybe some guesses, maybe some assumptions. Start with that. Move all over the place. You don't have to start from the front of the template and work to the back. I like to jump around myself because when I think of a great idea, got to get it in there. So once you have all those pieces in, that's when you're going to start using, say, the questions that are in the template. And I'll show you what I mean when I open up the template in a little bit, but you can start answering those questions. It can be like one-word answers, like, yes, no, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And then come back and maybe elaborate on that a little bit. That'll really help you start developing some content and some plans for that. And also you can delete parts of the template that you don't want. So most of them are going to be coming in like a Word document format. And the WESC template was actually designed to help, lots of different business models, business types. So it's fairly large, and some of it just might not apply to you. So that's fine. It's your document. Make it whatever you want it to be. And then the last point is that's when you start doing the research to verify those assumptions and fill in the gaps that you have in your business plan. So the research is kind of like a key part of this. It's really hard to do a business plan if you don't do any research. Then just the tips on the side there that I have. One, keep it simple. If you conduct thorough market research, set realistic financial projections, define your operational processes, and create a strong marketing plan. Those 5 tips, you are laughing with your plan. You're going to have such a good time if you can kind of keep it simple and just put the information you need, get it done, get it done. Okay, so now some helpful resources. There's 4 I wanted to point out here. So WESC does have the WESC Resource Library. There's lots of templates, tools, articles, webinars. Again, there's an older webinar where I walk through the business plan template and just explained each section. So if you feel like going back and checking that out, go for it. Lots of great resources in there. Also, Sask Startup Institute, fantastic organization. They're great if you're kind of like just getting off the ground and you need research, you need documents, you need data to work with. Oh my goodness, they're so good to work with. They have business advisors as well. And you can kind of tell them where you're at, what kind of information that you need, and they can produce some reports for you that you can reference in your business plan. Super helpful. Also, Google. Don't be afraid of Google. I think the only professional that really gets scared when we say, hey, so I Googled this, that's going to be your doctor. But honestly, find what you can online. You're going to have to use your critical thinking skills there to see if it's good data or not. But sometimes just finding out like who's out there, who's doing what are the trends, it's really important. So don't be scared to even reference it in your business plan. It's good to know that you've done your due diligence and you're using all the avenues that you can to find that. And the 4th piece there is artificial intelligence. Now, can sometimes be a bit controversial, especially in the creative industry right now. It's pretty tough. But I would say there is some benefit to using AI. And what I mean by that is AI isn't, well, I'm hoping that you don't say Chat GPT is kind of the most common. You go to it like, write me a business plan. And it spits out stuff. And we can tell when something is produced by AI because honestly, what it does is it starts explaining what a business plan is. It actually doesn't talk about your business because it's not in your head. It doesn't know what your business is or what your ideas are. So we can tell right away, it's like, oh, this business plan is kind of like explaining business concepts, business models, maybe certain industries, but it's not specifically talking about your business. So that's why it's easy for us to kind of check that. So what I do recommend though is if you are struggling to maybe convey the message that you're trying to say you did make a couple of bullet points and you're like, I just want this to sound like it's a nice paragraph. I don't want it in bullet points. You can actually put it in AI and say, hey, put this in maybe a more professional paragraph for me, maybe stretch it to two paragraphs so it can better articulate what I'm trying to say. And then you can kind of play around with it. That's when it's really helpful, when it's using the content that you own and you created to craft it the way that you want and feel good about it. Okay, now I'm going to talk just briefly about if you're making a business plan to get a loan. So just on the other side of this equation, reading business plans to get a loan, I think a lot of people, they really try to perfect their business plan. But again, we just need the details. We just need to make sure that you understand how this business is going to be successful. Honestly, that's what you're trying to convince the person. It's not so much that this business is going to be so amazing. It's just like, oh yeah, we believe that, but it's also that you understand all the things that you need to do to make this successful. Because the second bullet point there, you can see if your business is successful, you'll be able to pay your loan payment. That's really important for somebody that's like lending out their money to you. They want to know that you can actually make those payments. So your success is so critical. So they honestly genuinely want you to be successful, but they also really want their money back too. So that's why you need to prove you understand how you're going to like implement this and make this happen. And they also have data that you don't. So if they happen to give you anything, go ahead and use that. But keep in the back of your mind that generally folks that in institutions that do lending for small businesses, they receive financial statements from all over the place. They get actually a pretty good handle on kind of the market at the time. So If you're submitting, say, some numbers, you're saying, hey, I'm going to make this much in sales or revenue. And they're like, ooh, in the back of their mind, they're like, I've seen a lot of, financial statements recently and reports that have come out that aren't saying the same thing. So you really have to have some data to back up why your numbers are going to be that much better. And what is the plan to make that happen? Um, Obviously, we want you to have passion and like great expectations for your business, but you need to also like prove where those numbers are coming from. And if they're giving you feedback, they're interested in funding you. And what I mean by that is if you go to an organization and you say, "Hey, I would like a business loan. Here's kind of my idea," and they're like, "Ooh, no thanks." That's because that's maybe they're not even funding that industry. Maybe they don't like your plan, whatever it is. But if they're like, hey, we've got some ideas. What if you did it this way? Then we would maybe feel a little bit more comfortable. That's a good sign. That means that they're willing to talk about this and try to figure out how to craft it so that they can fund it. So if they are giving you feedback, don't be discouraged. They're trying to make it better. They're trying to make it work. If they didn't want to, they would just outright decline you right off the bat. And then just keep in mind that a business loan is very different from a personal loan. Um, so personal loans sometimes can be fairly easy to get, where you can just walk into a bank and the same day you can walk out with an approval. Um, Business loans are pretty different. You need a lot more information. Um, and usually a lot more documents to support it as well. So just kind of keep that in mind. Just kind of like set those expectations for yourself that this isn't kind of like, oh, you walk into an organization, you're coming out the same day with a business loan. Sometimes you can if you're doing an expansion, but generally give yourself a couple of weeks. If it's a business loan, manage those expectations, plan for that. If you set yourself up for like, hey, I'm going to do this, and then the funding has to happen, then this and this, and it has to happen in a 4-day period, it's probably not going to work and you're going to be pretty upset that it's immediately not happening. So just keep that in mind. Give yourself some time to process this so it's not a stressful situation. Okay, now we're going to get into the business plan template. So just give me a second here. Stop that. Okay. Now, if you don't have this, you can actually download it from the WESC website. There we go. That's what I want. Share this again. Let's get here. You can follow along if you want. Okay. So right off the bat here, you'll notice we have our giant logo, WESC, right here. So again, this is a Word document, and this business plan is yours. It's not WESC, so go ahead and delete that logo and put your own in. And then I would recommend putting your business name in here. And maybe if you got a tagline, sure, put it in there. Again, it's yours. Do whatever you like. So this is the checklist if you are looking for some financing. So just some things to kind of be aware of. They want to know the breakdown of those project costs, having some financial statements and things like that. And yeah, so it's basically just having like additional documents that you'll need to prepare if you're looking for financing. Okay, now this giant table of contents here. So again, it's designed for a lot of different organizations and industries. So I'm going to try to touch on each one of these if I can for just a minute or so. But also keep in mind before I mentioned about like deleting something that doesn't work for you, you can also add something in. So say, for example, you're a professional in your industry, requires a certain amount of training to stay, certified or something like that. That's something really important you're probably going to want to put in here. So if you're finding that section doesn't exist, just add it in. Okay, get down to the executive summary. So if you've never seen a business plan template before, just a heads up, the executive summary comes last. You actually skip this section, because honestly, everything to fill this section is coming from the rest of your business plan. So just a heads up though, that each section, you'll see how we've got our title, a little explanation and all these questions. Every section is going to have this kind of format, a whole bunch of questions to kind of like help you craft that content. So just to make you familiar with this template. Okay, business description. Well, that's pretty straightforward. Describe your business and put anything you want in there, honestly. Okay, vision, mission, and goals. Now, this is a bit of a tough one. People do struggle with this. And um, what I would recommend for this one is if you kind of have an idea on the top of your head right now, maybe it's just a goal. Maybe you haven't defined it as a vision or a mission. I think these things are extremely important to do, but sometimes it's hard to do first. So put in some ideas, um, word it any way you want. Again, your vision is kind of like what you're hoping, ideal state is. And then the mission is like, how are you trying to achieve that? So at this point, put some bullet points in of like, this is maybe what I'm hoping for and how I'm going to do it. Maybe some goals that I have. And then you're going to work on the business plan and you're going to come back and be like, oh, actually, I'm going to do it this way instead. I figured out a better way to do this. So, um, oh, and then just uh, to help you is look for other organizations that you admire and see what kind of vision and mission and values that they have. I'm not saying copy them, but it makes it a lot easier to craft your own when you see examples that kind of resonate with you as well. So now we are getting into market research and analysis. So this is kind of actually it's a pretty critical part of the business plan. It's also people really struggle with this one because this is one where you got to go do a lot of research to do this. So you'll see at the top, it's kind of explained there's two types of research, the primary and secondary. So again, primary is the research that you're going to be doing. So maybe you're going to ask your friends, your neighbors, everything like that. You're collecting that data yourself. Maybe your experience, maybe you're an employee somewhere and you kind of know what's happening. Whereas the secondary, that's when you're going to start getting reports, um, articles, some things to kind of like educate yourself on the stuff that you don't quite know yet, or finding out like maybe, how big your market is. Like, so that's where this is really important, where you're going to be doing these two types of research, and both are really important. The market research reports that you can get, sometimes they're a little bit dated, they're a few years old, so that's why it's also important to support it with that primary to kind of confirm some of that. Also, on the research reports, that's where SaaS Startup Institute is going to be very helpful. Where I mentioned before, you can go and tell them what you need, and they can spit out a bunch of reports for you. That's like that's one of their key services that are so critical to making a business plan successful is getting SaaS Startup involved in your journey as well. I actually wanted to mention too, you'll see on this page, it says the NAICS codes. So it's right here. NAICS codes are known as the North American Industry Classification System. The reason why it's important to know this is because you can find more research about your specific business type if you know the NAICS code. So there is the NAICS website. You can go and do a search and try to figure out what your code is. Or my favorite trick is just go to Google, type in NAICS, NAICS, and then whatever your business is, like maybe it's like stylist or tattoo artist or whatever it is, and then hit enter, and it's immediately going to show you. Like, probably the first result is going to be like, hey, by the way, this is your code. You're off to the races. You don't have to like go sifting through their website to find it. Google's really good now at finding the right codes. But again, you can even work with your business advisor to confirm you got the right one. Okay, now the next section I wanted to talk about was competitors. Yeah, here we go. Um, so I'm not sure if you know this, but again, SaaS Startup Institute has a competitors list for you for your area. So you can actually say, hey, this is what I'm doing. You tell me all the competitors, and it gives you some general information about all of those competitors. It's not going to tell you exactly what they make for revenue, but it will put them in a range. So that'll also give you an idea as well. So say you made some assumptions that I'm going to do this particular industry. I know these competitors are doing it, but I'm going to do it better. I think they're making this much money. And when you see that competitor report, maybe they're making way more than you thought, which is exciting because that means there's lots of room for you as well. But if they're making way less than you were expecting, it's like, maybe they're not doing it right. Or is there enough room for me to make the revenue that I'm hoping to make? So And then you'll just see down here. Oh, just a heads up, please, if you're updating this one, it's a Word document, take out competitor A, B, C, D, and actually put their names in. It's a lot more helpful that way. Okay, now we're going to get down to the SWOT analysis. So if you've never done a SWOT analysis, it's again stands for the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So right here, it's in a little chart. So what we have here is we've got internal to the business is this top row. The second row is external to the business. And then this first column is positive factors. And second one is negative factors. Now, personally, I find SWOT analysis really easy. The first, internal positive factors. Oh man, I'm really good at human resources, finances, cash flow, operations, whatever it is, whatever your strengths and weaknesses are. This is the easiest one to fill out. Then moving over to the weaknesses, like, oh, maybe I need some work on this area and this area. That's great. Then we get down into external. This is where it gets a little bit tricky because, again, you need information to work with. You need some reports. Also, you can work with your West Business Advisor to help get this sorted out too, because it's a little bit tricky. So honestly, as well, if you're looking for financing, this is a fantastic tool that we love seeing that a person has kind of gone through this exercise. But whenever you identify these weaknesses and these threats, the lender also wants to know, and this is kind of later in the business plan as well, like how are you dealing with that? So we actually like it when you identify so many weaknesses and threats because we know you've really thought about it. But also, now that we know it, we want to know, okay, what are you going to do about it? So it's really important for that. Okay, target market segmenting. So again, this is an area some folks can struggle with as well in this particular area. So segmenting, again, is just even like making those customer profiles where you can start with yourself. You can say, okay, maybe a woman of a certain age, still employed, has a dog, a couple of kids. Like you're trying to like make this maybe this fictional character because it's easier to try and figure out your market, who you're going to sell to, how you're going to advertise to them when you've got that kind of person in your mind. I'll be also honest with you too, is that I usually start with myself as the ideal customer because I think this is a fantastic idea and I want it. It's missing as a service that I want. But the more work that I do, I sometimes find that I am no longer the ideal customer. I'm still going to be the one to run the business, but just keep that in mind that sometimes you aren't the ideal customer. And then once you've had time to work through this section, putting everything in, again, work with your business advisor. They can help fine tune it. They can kind of explain some of these graphs a little bit too of like how to put this all together. Yeah, this is one we work on a lot. So, but again, you're going to need some research on your industry for us to do a good job to help you with this one. Okay. Next section I wanted to talk about. My goodness, I'm almost out of time. Okay. Market potential, market share. Again, SaaS Startup Institute can get you reports on that one. Marketing strategy. So marketing strategy, again, always starting with, and this section is always going to be growing. You're going to come back to this section lots and always be updating it with more information. This is something that you're going to try your best with at the beginning. You're going to test out a few things, come back and take it from there. Again, the business plan itself is actually a working document. You should always kind of be updating it, coming back to it. Just remember with marketing as well is that if you can track it, you can measure it. And if you can measure it, you can improve it. So it's really important. I know it can kind of be a bit daunting with marketing sometimes, but it's really important that kind of you track all the efforts that you have and how much money you're spending on these things to see if it's working. Sometimes something feels really good to do. It's a nice task, but actually it doesn't actually turn into any sales for you at all. So it's good to know which things are working and not working. Okay. Marketing budget. Sorry, I'm going to skip down here a little bit. Now, marketing budget. So right here, it says like develop a plan using a calendar. Oh, I would really recommend this. especially when you're putting, I think we have a table down here too. Yeah, so it's basically just saying, hey, these are all the potential things I can do. Add in all the stuff on top of that, this is not an exhaustive list. Talk about if you're gonna use that or not, how often you're gonna spend. Some people are like, well, I'm gonna spend, $50 on social. I'm gonna do, 500 on print. I'm gonna do all this other stuff. And when they add it all up, they're like, holy smokes, that's a lot in a month. I'm gonna have to spread this out. And I'm actually have to start doing some campaigns. So the numbers actually sometimes will dictate how much you have to spend. So it's really important to kind of put that down in a schedule to see how much money you have to play with. And it's also really important to understand how much capacity you have. If you have all these ideas you want to implement, it can be like super overwhelming trying to do all of that work. So you might have to pick one thing at a time to do. Okay. Sales projections. So forecasting, good guessing. Yeah, so this is kind of like the numbers now that we get into the business. I would really highly recommend that you make three scenarios. So the first scenario is going to be like, great sales, like your hopes and dreams, like, man, this is how much money I'm going to make, is very exciting, very motivating to see what kind of like potential that you could have with your business for the sales, like your max capacity. If you're constantly busy selling out, how much money are you going to make? Then I would also recommend making a scenario of what you think your competitors are making in that area and what that looks like for you compared to your expenses. And the third one is break even. How much money do you need to make just to pay the bills? So those are three really good scenarios to know. And it's also something, even if you have some summaries as well, whoever is giving you maybe a loan for this business also likes to see that you kind of like thought of that. Like, okay, if I had the worst case scenario, maybe I didn't get traction in my marketing right off the bat and I'm not getting any sales. What am I gonna do in the first, say 6 months if I don't have any money coming in? Like we want to see kind of some plans of how to keep it going. Okay, I'll try to wrap it up here real quick. Operations plan, two pieces here. Legal, highly recommend that you book in with a lawyer at least for one meeting to ask them about your industry, ask them maybe to look at your documents. Having a lawyer kind of handy is fantastic and maybe can save you a pile of money later on by maybe you did your contract wrong and you can't get paid for something. It'd be super helpful. Bookkeeping, highly recommend a bookkeeper. Oh my goodness, you have so much on your plate to start a business. To do all that record keeping is sometimes feeling very overwhelming. And even like setting up your chart of accounts, sometimes seems like, I don't even know if I'm doing this right. So typically bookkeepers, they're going to be the ones entering all that data and producing some reports for you. And then you've got an accountant that can give you some like advice, some direction, maybe change things up. They can file your taxes for you and things like that. So a lawyer, a bookkeeper, an accountant, that's like the dream team for any any entrepreneur. If you have those right off the bat, you're going to save yourself a lot of time and money, which sometimes if, oh, I don't know if I can afford that person for a little while, I would make it a high priority to try to afford that person if you can. Okay. Last piece. I'm going to jump down. Well, I think it's the last piece. Getting close to the end of my pages here. Cost of goods sold. Really wanted to mention this again. Cost of goods sold. The definition of that is whatever the physical costs are to produce the product or service is the cost of goods sold. So if I've got a pen here, say I got all the materials to make this pen and it cost me $1 to get this plastic, this little gripper here, this clicky bit and the metal clip, it's $1. So yeah, that's the cost of goods sold. So I could sell this for, $10 or whatever. But it's really important to understand this as well. And then you've got other things like say you've like rent. That's not actually kind of calculating into this. There's other kind of like fixed expenses and variable expenses and things like that too. Again, business advisors love to go through this stuff with you, so I would recommend asking them questions about that. And then a tip for this as well is watch your receipts when you're buying stuff and write everything down and just explain what you're using it for. That's the easiest way to find out if you're missing any specific expenses that would be considered a cost of good sold. Okay, risk management. Don't ignore this section. I mentioned before, especially if you have any kind of money wrapped up in this business. This is so critical. We love the confidence that we see sometimes when person's like, "I'm amazing. There's gonna be no problems." It's great. We are so happy you're that confident. But also, what are the potential risks and what are your plans to kind of put in place to make sure that you can stay operational and also feed yourself? Like this is important. So these are hard questions sometimes, but we do really recommend trying to figure out, like, if you're a sole proprietor and you get sick, what are you going to do? So hard questions like that. And okay. Oh, I should probably skip it. Oh, last piece. I keep saying last piece. Sorry about that. Ownership and management. So again, these are professional supports. I've already mentioned a couple. The other ones I wanted to mention, insurance agent. Highly recommend finding somebody that you like working with. Actually, anyone. All these professionals and advisors. There's a lot of very qualified people out there. And make sure that you hire somebody that you enjoy working with. Because they're going to be kind of part of your team moving forward. If you don't like them, but they're very good, find somebody else. It's not worth working with somebody you just don't like. They should be, it's a relationship. So just keep that in mind that just because they're very skilled at what they do, that doesn't mean that they don't have to be nice to you. So keep that in mind. Mentors and key advisors, find all the folks you can to help you out. Highly recommend that. Okay. I think that is going to be pretty much all I'm going to cover for today. Yeah, the rest are just kind of like the supporting documents. Oh, the very last piece, last page. Sorry, I'll do this. Explain this section here. A resume is only required if you're getting lending. Equipment list, again, everything that you need to buy, quotes, anything over $1,000 they want to see. If it's less than $1,000, they don't want to see the quote for it. That's just too much. And when they talk about agreements, it's going to be like lease or rent agreements, franchise agreements, vendors or suppliers you're going to be working with, or potential major clients that you're going to work with that come up with majority of your revenue. So, okay, well, thanks for sitting with me on that one. That was a lot to go through, and I failed at 37 minutes. But definitely, if you have any trouble with your business plan at all, need some help, get booked in with your business advisor. They will work with you one-on-one. And if you want to do it in a group setting, wait till the workshop. That's going to be the end of July for that. But that's all I have for today. And if I see any questions, I don't see any on here, then we should be good to go. So you have a wonderful day. I hope this was helpful, and maybe we'll see you around. Thanks. Bye.